Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. My name is Ken Edwards with the Midwest Coalition of Labor. Sitting to my left, wearing pink, is...
It's salmon.
Is it salmon?
It's salmon. It's a different color.
Yeah, okay. It's Ed Maher, and he is with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. I didn't know that 150 made salmon color shirts.
I actually don't buy my shirts at work.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to get to today. We don't have a guest intentionally because, number one, nobody would come on.
Yeah. And we were guest heavy last time.
Yeah, we've had too many guests. This whole guest thing is getting annoying, right? It gets in the way of me talking.
Right.
You know, we got a lot to say.
Nobody wants to hang out with us this week.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. I want to start with this. If you have been following the news, you saw that Ron Desantis, who I sometimes refer to as Goofy, especially in his lawsuit against Disney, Goofy v. Goofy, announced his presidential bid, correct?
Yeah, that was on Wednesday night on Twitter. He did it in an interview with Elon Musk on Twitter's new Twitter Spaces, I think they call it, some platform that Elon Musk is
whatever they call it.
It didn't work.
It didn't go well. So here's this guy announcing his presidential bid on Twitter, which, by the way, just seems like a weird place to announce it. And they're filming it, right?
It sends an important message that him and Elon Musk are.
They're simpatico.
I think so. I think that was the point of it.
Goofy and Spaceman are simpatico. But the funniest thing is that it didn't work.
Right.
Like it was 20 minutes of silence, and it just like all the tech stuff didn't work. And now here's this tech billionaire who bought Twitter, immediately fired everybody, and that's weird. His thing is not working.
Well, that's a very good point. And the first thing that I thought of was, the system's not working. You'd think that there'd be people looking to fix this, but he fired 3/4 of his staff, and since he bought it, Twitter went from he paid $44 billion, and now Twitter's value is estimated around 20. So the value of the company has dropped by more than half. And he fired 75%, but clearly he's having problems making things work. I mean, his biggest development, I think, so far was getting rid of the blue check mark. So this whole fire all your workers and experience unprecedented levels of success is not going well.
Yeah,
and
it's smart, by the way, of DeSantis then to announce this thing there. Why not at least tape it and then announce it? Do you have to go live where everything can go wrong, and sure enough, it goes wrong? Number one, you're an idiot. Number two, you're an idiot for getting in bed with the guy that literally lost half the value of his own company and fired a whole bunch of people. And number three, just as an aside, if you're thinking about going up in one of Elon's rockets at the moment, you might want to think twice.
That is something that I have wondered for a while now. There's a lot of erratic behavior, a lot of unpredictable types of things that he says and does with varying degrees of success. And at some point, is this going to impact the nation's willingness to invest in him and his company to send astronauts to the moon, Mars?
I think it did, because I think he lost a bid to, I forget who it was, but NASA picked somebody else over him and his SpaceX program to do X, Y, and Z. I don't know what it was, but he lost that bid. So I think the days of Elon Musk seem to be disappearing. And you know what? It's like one of those things stick to what you're good at, right? Your Tesla thing seemed to be working pretty well. Why venture into space and Twitter and presidential elections? And you know why? Because you're a hubristic, egotistical megalomaniac. And those are a lot of big words. And if you're listening, you can look them up. Hubristic, egotistical, megalomaniac.
That's a lot of syllables.
I've made all of those words up. I'm not even sure what they mean, but I've heard other people use them that are smarter than me, so I just figured I'd repeat them.
Well, Elon used to be kind of a crazy genius.
Right.
You listen to him, and it's like, I don't understand what he's talking about, but he sounds like he really knows.
Yeah.
Sounds very smart. Now he sounds like just a normal, crazy person griping about, when's the garbage man going to get here? I don't think he came last
I could
week.
build a garbage collector that picks garbage up itself.
Yeah, so he's lost a lot of the mystique,
Well, yeah. So good luck, Ron DeSantis, by the way, for tying yourself to him. And we don't get too political here because we know our listeners span the spectrum, and I think that's fine. It doesn't matter. I don't particularly care. We don't care, but DeSantis is 30 points behind at the moment and is passing anti-union laws
Right.
in Florida, like gutting teachers' ability to collectively bargain. And of course, he's leaving cops and firefighters alone because that's the politically expeditious thing to do if you're a Republican. But going after teachers, the people that are teaching your kids, banning books. What did he do? He also did something like ban people from buying land in
I think
Florida.
people who are not citizens can't buy land. Like, for example, if you were born in China and you live in the United States,
Right.
have a green card, whatever, and a number of other countries as well, but you're not a citizen, you can't buy land. And I think the Supreme Court is going to go after this,
Of course,
because
okay.
it's crazy. But as you said, there was a law passed probably maybe within the last 6 weeks or so, targeting public employees. And I think this is all just sort of an ideological push. When you're coming up to a primary, everybody's got to run as far right or as far left as they can to be competitive in a primary. It's one of the sort of downfalls of primary politics. But the problem is, if he doesn't win, all this stuff is still law. Like the people of the state of Florida are going to be victims as collateral damage to like attempts to portray himself as the most hard on immigrants and unions and whatever. So,
and I think, didn't he also pass a law that if he runs for president and doesn't win, he can still be governor?
it wouldn't shock me.
I
don't know.
think he did. So you're right. This collateral damage, and once again, I got to go back to this. Hey Republicans, hey Ron Desantis, keep pounding the working class. Keep pounding people that probably half of those teachers would have voted for you, and now you just took away their collective bargaining rights. You just lost half of their vote. So you're missing the big picture. Anyway, so anyway, that's Goofy v. Spaceman.
We're adding a third character. Speaking of Goofy, there was some news out of medieval times. It's one of your favorite things to report on.
Oh my
over the
God,
last couple months.
I can't get enough of that.
Yeah.
So medieval times, a couple of things have happened. One is there was a picket not too long ago. They're picketing, right? They're on strike. And I forget which location it was. I believe it was somewhere in California. And sure enough, there was a car that literally, there's video of this car, hitting picketers. Right?
Yeah.
Trying to get it. They wanted to get to medieval times so badly that they had to run over, some knights. Like, what is the matter with people? Like,
I'm pretty
come
sure
on,
it's
man.
assigned seating. You don't have to get there early.
Is that right?
I think so.
It's just amazing. Like, hey, if you see a picket line, we've said this on the show for day one. They're not picketing just for their own purposes. That picket is going to lift up I don't know. It's going to lift up the standard of living for everybody around them, right? And so if they do well in medieval times, then it's going to be better for, I don't know, the next medieval times that comes up, right?
Right.
I mean, so if you see a picket line, you got to realize that it's not just about those particular people on the picket line, like we talked about with the writers' strike. Right? It's not just about writers. Right? This is about humans versus robots, for example. So medieval times did this. And and I'm going to end with this. We're going to take a break in a second. But they brought in what I would call ye old union buster.
Very clever.
Thank you so much. And they did the regular playbook, right? Which is playbook since day one. Fight the union, lose the election, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so now the guys are union. Don't come to the bargain table.
Right.
Don't negotiate in good faith. I'm not even sure if they ever got to the bargain table. And force them out on strike. And so now they're on strike. And then what do? Try and desert the union. What does that mean? Try and get enough people to withdraw their interest in the union,
right? Which
they did, and the union won the election again.
Yeah.
So now we're, I don't know, X year plus of getting nowhere, and, it's just a simple playbook. And I guarantee that they have spent more money on ye old union buster and ye old union lawyers, anti-union lawyers, than they would have if they just gave these guys a contract.
I mean, it is a very simple playbook, and I think one of the most powerful things we've had, I know Jim Sweeney and a couple of other business managers who have organized have come on and said, when you can tell workers, workers who are trying to organize, they're hearing something from the union, they're hearing something from their employer, and it's hard to know exactly what to listen to most. But as a union, when you're trying to organize and you can tell a worker, here's what your boss is going to do.
That's right.
Here's what they've probably already done,
That's
and
right.
Here's what's coming next.
Yeah.
And then they can watch it happen in real time.
Yeah.
It builds trust, and it's not a very sophisticated playbook. But yeah, don't show up for negotiations means we've had this union for a year and nothing's happened. And then they come back and say, well, you've had this union for a year and nothing's happened. You should just get out of it, and you'll flake off a couple people. So,
and they'll gaslight you because they'll tell you. So the law, by the way, is that the union gets 1 year unfettered to get their first contract. You can't desert them. You can't get rid of them. They have a year.
Right.
If the employer breaks the law, you can extend that year. You can extend the bar to an election. So that's just a 2-second. You could look that up. But they basically get a year unfettered. So the playbook is exactly that. Don't come to the table. Delay. Appeal. Badmouth the union. Fire a bunch of folks, and then go, hey, this isn't working. Right. It's not working because you won't let it work. And the law, as we talk with David Madeline, the guy that wrote that book, the law is a slap on the hands. It's just literally a slap on the wrist. There's no penalty for that. So folks that are listening out there, we when I was at 150, and I know a lot of the unions do this, we call it the inoculation file. We literally hand them a packet and go, here's what you're going to see.
Right.
Here's what they're going to say. This is what they're going to do. And they all do exactly what we say they're going to do. And then that builds trust in the union. You go, oh, well, we were forewarned about this. It's best to forewarn them, right?
And I think great union leaders recognize also that companies can handle that playbook because it's very simple.
That's right.
So what do workers have to do? Find a way to change it, to get them off of their plan, because when they don't have the plan, they don't know what to do.
Oh, no. If you get them off script, and I've had people on the witness stand like pushing them off script, they're like, what?
Yeah.
They are literally just absolutely clueless. So unions need to do creative, inventive things to get to that first contract. And then once again, politicians, I know Joe Biden is a big listener of this show, and that is, hey, Joe, pass a law that gives unions arbitration rights for a first contract in the first year. End of discussion. Pass that law.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Joe, if you're listening, I keep getting these. It's not really your wheelhouse, but I keep getting these notices from the tollway that I didn't pay my tolls, but I did pay my tolls. So Joe, if you're listening, if you could help me solve my Illinois toll problem, that'd be great.
Are you like a scofflaw?
A scofflaw? Not for many years, Ken. That's a good use of the word scofflaw.
Thank you so much. I'm big on words today. So listen, you
big on words every day.
You're listening to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. We will be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ken, sitting here with Ed, and we're going to turn the topic now to children. We love children.
And unfortunately, we have to report far too often about violations of workers, workplace laws that involve children.
Yeah, it's absolutely sickening. So apparently, I read in the news that some McDonald's franchises in Louisville were found to have 10-year-olds working there. 10-year-olds.
Working in the kitchen.
Not 14-year-olds, 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the matter with people?
Well, as you've said in the past, it's not just the fact that there are 10-year-olds back there, but there are other employees who are working with 10-year-olds and not doing anything about it, not saying something about it, which is what baffles me. Because, 10-year-old, think about a 10-year-old. You can tell that they're not of age to be working, nor should they be. Yeah,
shame on you if you're working next to somebody or a kid that's 10 years old. You know that kid is 10 years old, period, the end. And by the way, who's driving the kid to work?
Right.
Like, what kind of parent are you that allows your 10-year-old to go to work? So,
for sure.
So,
I think a lot of it is exploitation of kids who've traveled here without documents.
I think that's right as well.
Came to meet a family member who wasn't there or something. I mean, the New York Times did a lot of reporting on that. That's a huge problem.
It's disgusting, by the way. It's absolutely, and as you said, I think off the air, they get paid in unhappy meals.
Yeah, they're sad meals. They have and I think it comes with broken toys
and gruel,
diet caffeine-free Coke, which everybody hates. So it's gruel, yes, Oliver Twist style. So,
that's the negative on kids, but there's a really positive story about kids in quote unquote what I would call labor/collective action.
Yeah.
And what's that, Ed?
So right now in New Mexico is the latest state where this has happened, but it was the fifth state where this happened. Kids have gotten together to fight against student or school lunch debt which is something I wasn't really familiar with, but I think about it. I mean, I've got a daughter, and I put money on her lunch card. Her mom puts money on her lunch card, and she goes to school and has whatever she wants for lunch, and she has a balance. But there are a lot of kids who don't have money on the cards, and they have to eat something, so they get food. And at the end of the year, they just have debt that they have to pay because.
And who do they pay? The school district?
So it's the school district.
Okay.
And a big part of the problem, because of kids who can't afford food, or can't afford to have food to bring to school, or don't have money to buy lunch, a lot of times they're not really eating anything, or they're not eating well at home. There are just a lot of people that are affected by this. In fact, this article said that 9 million children in the U.S. suffer from food insecurity. 9 million kids. And school lunches get subsidized or paid for by the federal government if you meet criteria, which criteria is for a 3-person family, if your total income is less than $27,000 a year, you can get school lunches for free. Above $27,000 across 3 people in a family, and you have to pay for school lunches.
Which is absolutely absurd, because $27,000 gets you nothing.
I don't know how many other families you have to live with to afford rent and have enough money. But anyway, the real story here is that in these states, kids have seen this and gotten involved themselves and started making signs and talking to their schools, talking to the community. And it's not the kids that are struggling with food insecurity. It's the kids who are sitting there and seeing their friends not eat something and be worried at lunch when they should be talking to their friends. So kids have done this, and they've passed it in 5 states where there's increased funding for all kids to just get school lunches.
And this has been brought to light by other children.
Children are doing this, and children are getting this done.
I love it.
And again, the most recent state was New Mexico. But this is something that's big right now in Minnesota, and it's being fought over, where opponents in Minnesota are just saying, food insecurity is a personal choice. It's not the government's role to
eating is a personal choice. Like, I don't really, do I need to eat?
Well, that's what the kids kept saying. The kids kept it simple. They're like, we're talking about food.
Yeah.
We're like,
that's like saying, do you really need to breathe? I mean, come on, you're taking up too much air.
Sometimes as adults we get jaded by our experiences or whatever, and sometimes a kid will say something to you, and you're like, it really is just
so.
That
Once
simple.
again, and again, same thing, right? Once again, shame on the rest of us for not, number one, realizing this is a problem. Shame on the school districts that are letting this happen. Shame on any legislature that will turn its back on this. And the one cool thing that you showed me was one of the children that was, like sort of organizing. Right? These kids are organizing. They're acting. They're acting in concert with each other, which is what a union does. This kid was wearing a KISS shirt.
Yeah, he was.
Right?
Yeah, he was sitting next to the governor. They had when the law was signed, they had an event at his school, and he's rocking a KISS T-shirt.
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it.
But, again, you hear a lot of people on the other side of this saying for one reason or another that this shouldn't be covered, and that this is people's individual problems. I would just encourage folks to remember that the future is the children of this nation. We're counting on them. And if they're going to school and they haven't had breakfast and can't afford lunch and can't afford to eat, they're not going to be doing very well. So I think those of us who didn't know that this was a problem, I would hope that you'd have a little bit of compassion and support things like this.
So are you saying that children are our future?
I was going to sing it to you, but I haven't had a chance to warm up the pipes. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a simple message, but
don't jade them at 10 years old, for Christ's sake.
Honestly,
right? I mean, let them eat, let them not work. Let them enjoy their childhood. Like, let's stop this race to the bottom, where all of a sudden now we got kids working and not being able to eat. Like, how about having them have a good childhood and go like, hey, you know what? America's not a bad place to live. I think I'm going to grow up and achieve the American dream, as opposed to like forcing them to work and pay and go into debt. Because I got to imagine, look, I grew up poor as well. To be honest with you, I didn't even know this thing was a thing. I guess I just qualified for it. But I got to imagine that they're embarrassed, right? To like, hey, I I can't afford to eat. And that's an embarrassing thing, right?
Absolutely.
And they must feel bad. And kudos to the kids that are taking care of them. But
100%.
That there are kids that are bullying them as well, going, oh, you can't eat, whatever.
I'm sure. But the kids who have stepped up and actually taken action, or speaking at school board meetings and speaking in front of the legislature, those kids are a great example. I want to find some of them and try to get them involved in the labor movement, but they're an example that if you see something, say something.
Absolutely.
And you can help out people less fortunate than you, and it's good for everybody.
And you can do it together.
Yeah.
That's the strength.
The power
in numbers.
of collective action.
All day, every day. All right. Listen, we got to take a quick break. We will be right back right here on the Workers' Mic on 720 WGN.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ed Maher here with Ken. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
And welcome back. And, Ken was just looking out the window, as he likes to do, just space out and stare out the window with big dead-eyed look on his face. And he noticed that the bridges are up. You see all the boats headed back out onto the lake. It's summertime.
And what's important about the bridges being up?
Well, who doesn't? It's an important job.
Bridge tenders.
And they are members of the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150.
Good for them.
Shout out to the bridge tenders.
Shout out is right. And they have such a cool job, right? They sit in this little thing. They raise the bridge. They lower the bridge. And you think it's not an important job, but it is, especially during the riots over the summer or last couple summers ago.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, during the pandemic, they had to raise all the bridges.
They raised all the bridges. Yeah, don't get into downtown. So there's power in bridges.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you.
Bridging the gap.
I've said that my entire life, Ken. Power in bridges.
Talking about bridges.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up something. Every year, MetLife, it's a big insurance company, they put out a study.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, now you're in luck in that case. They put out a study that's a survey of all different workplaces across the country about employer attitudes and employee attitudes about benefits and general kind of workplace trends.
Right.
And it's really interesting because over time, you can watch people's attitudes toward things like unlimited PTO, paid time off, things like that evolve, and more companies start to do things like that. This year, their study, which just came out, is about the sense of care, and employers care for its employees. And
what do you mean? What does that mean in sense of care?
so, if you can give an employee health care,
Yeah.
or and you can, that person will have health care, but if they have a management style that makes them feel like their employer is engaged with them and cares about them, they're more satisfied and it's more meaningful. So it's sort of like a mindset type of thing.
So it's not a dollars and cents issue.
It's a little bit, the theme of it this year was a little bit esoteric, but there were a lot of interesting statistics that were a lot more concrete. And it was in 2023, 55% of employees reported that they were living paycheck to paycheck. And in 2022, a year ago, that number was 43%.
So we'd literally gone backwards.
Yeah, so 55% living paycheck to paycheck. And I don't know if you've seen it, but I think it's more than half of the country if there was an unexpected $300 expense, like you blow a tire.
Yep.
Can't afford it. Don't have the money,
I have seen that.
Yeah, and
you have to choose between eating or paying your rent.
Right. And in this study, they also showed that 48%, nearly half of the employees in the nation that they surveyed, cited financial concerns and financial stresses as having a negative impact on their mental health, which was only a third the year before. So big jumps this year.
MetLife, and why does MetLife do this, by the way? Are they just altruistic in doing this? Like, there must be a bottom line for them doing this.
Well, they're an insurance provider, so they provide benefits. And the heart of this study is just it's looking at benefit trends so that employers who want to provide insurance, who maybe don't, it's giving employers a good reason to provide benefits. Hey, look on the back of the report, whose number is that? It's MetLife's phone number.
That makes sense. But I'm glad that they're doing it anyway. Right. And I have been following this. You've been talking about this study for years. Like,
it's all
like sometimes there
was
pet insurance on it.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah. People who have everything else, they're like, well, what do we want? We want pet insurance
because they already have everything.
Right. And there's a new sort of trend that was mentioned in there, customizable benefits, where you get a certain amount of money for benefits and you get to pick what you get. It's not something that's taken off in many workplaces, but by and large, the things that people care most about when they're employees are still your traditional must-haves. Number one, with about 75% of employees ranking at number one, is health insurance.
Sure.
Then you got paid leave, retirement savings, 401k, pension, whatever that is.
So this is just benefits. This is not. Nobody's talking about money.
I'm
assuming money is like number one, and it's assumed that it's number one.
Right. This is just a list on the benefits, but yeah, I mean the economics are covered in there with people saying that they're living paycheck to paycheck. And one of the interesting things is if you ask an employee of a company how they're doing financially, they'll give you an answer. If you ask the employer how their employees are doing financially, they give you a totally different answer. There's like a 25-point gap.
Are you serious? What they think they're paying their employees versus what the employees are actually getting paid?
Right. Like I think that it was like a 22-point gap, and I think employers at a rate of like 80% said that their employees were doing well financially, and the actual number of employees that said so was like 58. There's
such a disconnect, and I think it's so disingenuous for these CEOs to say like, oh, employees are doing great, And I go back to the writers' strike, and once again, you think that these writers are rich, and I was just told somebody said that one of the writers on a very, very, very popular show literally couldn't pay for his internet service, so he had to go to the library and use their internet service to write an episode of a very, very popular show.
Yeah, and who's making money? These shows generate money. To think that somebody
the CEOs,
who's
the companies
wealth,
are making the money. They're taking the bulk of the money, and then I guess they're giving it back to the stockholders. I don't know, but who's paying for a $500 million yacht?
Right.
I know. I mean, come on. You know what? I'm gonna go to MetLife and go, my number one priority is me getting a $500 million yacht. How about that? I want a yacht.
I have one of those captain's hats, and I've been sort of working my way toward a yacht. Got the captain's hat.
I think that's a good start.
I have a pipe. I don't smoke a pipe, but I have it.
Yep.
I think it looks good. I'll probably get some sunglasses, maybe a Hawaiian shirt. So at some point down the road, it's going to be time to get the boat.
And you work close to the lake.
Yeah.
Right? So
I know the bridge tenders.
You're almost there.
I know.
Yeah.
Just that one piece, the boat.
They have $1 billion boat.
Yeah, I would be a sailor, but
let's go back. I want to go back to this for a quick second, Ed, and this is important. You're seeing, and this ties in, I think, to what MetLife said and what you just said, which is they want to be treated well, right? They want to feel that the employer cares about them, and that, by the way, it really does go a long way. And it used to be, right, back in the day, you would start working for a company and you would end up working for that company. They would appreciate what you did. They give you a lunch at the end. They give you retirement. They take care of you. They give you pension. They give you health insurance. They took care of you from cradle to grave, kind of like what the building trades do and what the unions do. Companies used to do that. Nowadays, people think, and I think that the companies themselves have basically said, it's like, you're expendable.
Right.
We don't need you. Until, by the way, they do need you. Like Amazon, they can't hire people.
Right. Well, let's look at this from a business perspective.
Okay.
Happy employees are productive employees.
All day,
there
every
have been
day.
1,000 studies that show that.
That's right.
You can get, and what we're seeing here is from MetLife.
Yeah.
You can have employees that have a benefit package on under two managers. One treats them well.
Yep.
One treats them poorly.
Yep.
And you have a total different experience for those employees, which means that they are not as productive, not as happy, and the company suffers from that. So the basic here is companies that are nice to their employees are probably more, effective, do better for their budgets, everything like that. So when you have companies that are actively antagonizing their employees
right.
or hitting them with cars outside the castle, as you mentioned earlier, it's bad for business. If your employees think that you're trying to screw them over,
I don't think it was the employer, by the way, that hit them with the car.
I understand. I was a little bit of a stretch.
I got it. But yes, I understand what you're saying. I look at something like, I'll just give you my example of this. Rutgers University, right? I think it's in
New Jersey.
I want to say it's in New Jersey. And they had their first strike. Apparently, Rutgers has been around for 275 years. I did not know that. That's really, really old. This was their first strike in 275 years. And it wasn't just the teachers' assistants that went on strike. It was the teachers, the professors, the entire faculty walked out. And, you talk about an institution as Rutgers, they must have been really, really unhappy. And it turns out that they were, and they came back in. What were they unhappy about? Working conditions, money, et cetera. But they walked back in. And the strike was effective. 40+% increase right out of the gate. So when you get to the point where you're so unhappy with your working conditions and they're not working anymore, and you have to go out on strike to prove a point and to get what's coming to you, you got to take a look if you're the employer and go, what are we doing wrong here? Like,
right.
why would we get to a point where our workers, 5,000 of them, are so angry, so upset that they're going to literally walk out and withhold their labor? And I think, I can't remember one. There was one university where they went out on strike, and the university first move was to try and file an injunction to make them come back to work. And like, how do you make somebody come back to work? Isn't that
right?
Indentured servitude? Like get back to work.
Yeah. Well, or quit probably.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's just like I guess what the guy from Starbucks said, Howard Schultz, was like, well, if it's so bad here, quit.
Right.
Didn't he say that to a bunch of his employees?
Yeah, and that's
who wants to hear that?
Right. That's the kind of attitude that employees don't want to hear.
It's the opposite of what we're talking about.
And what kind of people are you going to have doing this work for you? How well are they going to work for you?
You're going to have angry people.
Right.
I will tell you this. WGN, where we are, must, treat their employees pretty well, because every time I come here, with the exception of the odd person or two, they're always in a good mood.
Everybody here is really happy.
Yeah. We have a new producer today. Is he a producer? The guy that's running the board.
Yeah,
He's
Dan.
Dan Lawrence Long.
That's right.
Yeah, give him a shout out. Listen, and
What's up, Dan?
he's a 1220 member, IBW. But like, I don't know. Everybody we walk around here is like they're in a good mood. Now, that being said, we have gotten in trouble a couple of times for doing various pranks, if you will.
I think it has more to do with the environment here, because I know we're not that likable that you would always just be that happy to see us.
Well, you're not that likable.
That's for sure.
It's probably because of the pink shirt.
It's salmon. It was probably on sale, man. Take it easy. Probably got a great deal on it.
It's stained, by the way.
Is it?
No, I'm kidding.
You're mean.
I'm sorry.
I'm getting shamed over here. I'm getting salmon shaming. It's a thing. # salmon shaming.
He's
not about the.
He's not happy with his working conditions.
Not just.
Then
about
guess what? Quit
fish anymore.
And you should quit.
All right.
Listen, we'll take a. You want to take a quick break?
Yeah, I think it's time for a break.
All right. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. My name is Ken Edwards from the Midwest Coalition of Labor. Sitting next to me, Ed Maher from Operating Engineers Local 150. We're going to wrap things up by talking about, I think, what is continues to be timely, and that is the writers' strike.
Yeah,
and not just the writers' strike now, but what I think is you're going to see is the Directors Guild strike and Screen Actors Guild after strike.
Well, SAG, actually, the Screen Actors Guild, which is a joint union with the television and radio actors, they asked for a strike vote about a week ago. And from what I understand, it's overwhelmingly, I mean, you see a lot of actors posting this on their Twitter pages where they're saying, I support the strike. So their contract is up at the end of June. And then the Directors Guild is also. So this spirit of solidarity that the writers have been trying to attract, it's been successful so far, but when you can get a robot or AI to write something, you can't get it to act in the movie. You can't get it to direct a movie. So what these studios are going to wind up with pretty soon, within another 5 weeks or so, is no writers, no actors, no directors, and
then what? I'm
not sure. I mean, some places that have like a Netflix of the world that has some content backlogged, they can continue to put shows out, but live TV is going to struggle. And I think that that's important because these workers have an incredible amount of leverage. They have a tough battle against, an uncertain future with the way that they're handled as human beings, along with economics and things like that. But they're going to have a ton of leverage, and it's important to have this solidarity kind of stick together because the whole industry is going to be brought to a standstill.
And you know what? If that's what needs to happen,
right,
then that's what needs to happen. And so, we had when we first talked about the strike, we had somebody else on, David Madland, who talked about sectoral bargaining, and we've kind of touched on this in the past, but not really. And what it would mean is bargaining across an entire sector, whether you're union or not, you're bargaining for that sector. And what I think you're going to see here shortly, if I'm a correct prognosticator, is that the word?
Yeah, prognosticator.
Today's a day of big giant words. So I think you're going to see 3 very large, strong unions out at the same time. And I think Tom Hanks said something about this, that he has the same fear. Right?
Yeah, Tom Hanks everybody loved Tom Hanks.
You can't not like Tom Hanks.
Yeah, he's like Bill Murray. He's just universally loved by everyone. But he came out and he said that the writer's strike's important because they're fighting against the same thing that everyone in the entertainment industry is fighting against, and that's automation and the presence and the emergence of automation driving down everybody's wages. He actually made a reference to the people that are writing shows that are truly successful. They're making one guy millions of dollars and they don't have enough money to live. And I like to think that that's un-American. In some corners of America, maybe I'm wrong, but for most ordinary folks, when you hear about a story like that, somebody writes something and it's so good that it creates millions of dollars and everybody loves it and everybody watches it, and the guy who created it can't afford to
like
fill
everybody
his
else
gas
is
tank.
everybody else is making money from it, like whether it's T-shirt sales or sponsorships or commercials or streaming revenue or whatever it is. But the person who actually wrote it and made it like literally can't afford his rent.
And it's a simple concept. And there was a study done last week that shows that 70% of Americans support the writer's strike.
Thank God, by the way, because I think people are finally starting to understand that this notion of unfettered corporate greed has now gotten into their living rooms. How? Through Netflix, through these streaming companies, et cetera. Ed and I were talking about this off the air, and I'll mention this. You don't see people that are loyal to, like, nobody's wearing a Netflix shirt, right? But they're wearing a Stranger Things shirt. You know what I mean? And they're attached to the storyline, right? They love the story of whatever it is, Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul or et cetera. Succession I'm watching right now, just like these guys from Da Vinci Street
for Succession.
Well, don't tell me, please, because I'm still catching up. But the guys from Da Vinci Street said it's the best thing you'll ever watch, and blah blah blah. And it turns out that they were right. So
Succession's great.
Yeah, it's really good. But I'm tied to the actors and the writing, right? I'm not tied. I couldn't even tell you. Every night I turn it on, I'm like, what channel is that on again? You think I remember that it's on whatever it's on, HBO Max, which now, by the way, is Max, right? Which I don't know if they're named after you, Max from Da Vinci Street, but kudos if you are the owner of it. But it's like HBO Max. Now it's just Max. But who's tied to that? Nobody, right? They're tied to the writers and the actors and the people that are producing it and doing such a good job. So I think that's important, and maybe for the first time that you'll see these. I shouldn't say for the first time. I don't know if this has happened in the past, but hopefully you will see the Screen Actors Guild, the American Federation of Television. What is it? The American Federation of Television and Radio Artists.
There you go.
We couldn't get that right last week.
I think I guessed America, which doesn't make any sense.
Artists. So you'll hopefully that we'll see them together with the Writers Guild.
Yeah.
And IATSE, who has already said that they're not going to cross the picket line, and the Teamsters, who said they're not going to cross the picket line and have already proved that and shutting down these productions. That you'll see all of these folks get together and realize their economic strength because they have it. Right. You think, oh my God, I can't take on, Disney or Discovery. It's gotten to the point where, if just Google this because it really is an amazing clip. There was a CEO, I want to say, of Discovery, the Discovery Channel or something of those.
Yeah, it's a network of media, right?
And he was giving a commencement speech at Boston University College, and the students literally were chanting, pay your writers, right? Well, they literally, it's the most kind of esoteric, pay your writers.
And he stood there for a minute silent as the whole crowd that he was supposed to be talking to was chanting, pay your writers.
And then they flew a banner over there like, hey, so-and-so, pay your writers, And so imagine these college students now are understanding that their future depends on what happens in this writer's strike, because you imagine you're a college student, you're about to graduate, and go like, holy, is my job going to get replaced by AI?
Everybody's afraid of that.
And they should be. And you have the opportunity right now for the writers and the Screen Actors Guild and the Directors Guild to shut this thing down and say, we will not perform a single word written by AI, period, the end of discussion, never again, and end this discussion now. Because otherwise, if somebody doesn't stand up and stop it, meaning you guys, no pressure, by the way, then you're going to have, then things are going to go south very quickly. It's something, look, you and I both come from the building trades. We're used to bargaining collectively. Yeah. Right? We bargain against employer associations of, thousands of contractors. I'll give you an example for those listening here in the city. In the city of Chicago, the unions bargained together against the city, and it's called COOP. And I couldn't even
I don't know what it stands for.
Couldn't even tell you what it stands for.
One meeting room where people can't be sort of divided and
That's
conquered.
Exactly right.
It works out.
They can't go like,
everybody.
"Hey, Teamsters, if you take this deal, we can shove it down the operator's throat." So anyway,
in solidarity, there is power.
Absolutely, and you guys, stick it out, stay together. The country has your back. We have your back. The number one radio show in America, which is the Workers' Mic, right? We have their back, do we not?
Yeah, and we're actually the number one show in North America now.
Now it's North America.
It's spreading.
Holy cow. Does that mean Canada?
I don't know what's next.
Yeah. Europa.
We're on it.
Okay, well, hey, listen, that's gone by quickly. We are going to shut it down today. Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to the Workers' Mic powered by the Midwest Coalition of Labor right here on 720 WGN. We'll see you next week.